Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Story Reckless. I am Nathan. I will be your DM tonight, although this is going to be a little more casual. I use he, him pronouns, and let's pass it off to our players tonight who, we're all just going to be talking, really. So, yeah.
It's true. I'm Claire. My pronouns are they, them. I'm not playing Quidam tonight.
Big change.
And I am Olive. I use they and she pronouns, and I am not playing Centaur Barbarian Lovelace. That kind of petered out.
Yeah, so if for some reason you're joining us for the first time tonight, thanks for joining. I hope this will be interesting for you. We're doing a postmortem of our past adventure we just did. So yeah, we're going to be going through. We have questions for ourselves that we're going to start with, that we just kind of, I have some questions for both. I almost said Lovelace and Quidam. I kind of do for Lovelace and Quidam.
I can answer.
And I'm assuming both of you have questions for me. And then please, if you're in chat, would love to hear any questions you have. Feel free to just post them whenever they come to you. But yeah, with that, let's kick this thing off. Let me see here. I feel like I had a question here for both of you. Well, I think I actually want to start this with you, Olive, because of something that this whole adventure started with, us running Candlekeep Mysteries. And at the beginning of our last adventure, it was both of you leaving Candlekeep on your way back to Baldur's Gate to, deal with the slithering tracker. But something that keeps coming up with Lovelace is Lovelace's very strong dislike of Candlekeep, her hatred of it. And I'm just wondering why that is. I have ideas, and I think we've probably even talked about it. But if you wouldn't mind talking about why that is and kind of where you think that stems from.
Probably. So the conflicts that Lovelace has had with Candlekeep is when they, act super authoritarian, and then also extract such a steep price for knowledge that could save lives. They're basically it's similar to arms dealing.
Yeah.
It's just they're profiteering off of the deaths of others. It's indirect, sure. And I think Lovelace has dealt with a lot of that mercantile kind of side of violence. And of course, working closely with Box of Screws, specifically knows kind of what a racket Candlekeep is running, even though they keep their hands clean, because all of the dirty work happens in Baldur's Gate, where people get stabbed and murdered over books.
Yeah.
This is actually something we haven't talked about directly with an audience in front of us.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about exactly what Box of Screws has been up to?
Maybe we keep it vague for now. Some of it's pretty obvious, what Olive just said about that part of Box of Screws' business has been I don't know, very thinly veiled, if not veiled at all.
What's the front? Where did we pass through every time we were gonna go talk to Box of Screws?
Yes. I actually, so I had a thought as you were saying all that. What I wanted to say was, it's really funny because when we started this whole thing for Candlekeep Mysteries, I was, focused on getting ready and reading about Candlekeep and all this. And the stuff that you noticed, Olive, I feel, I don't know why, but it just did not occur to me. Because I think I was just really focused on the Candlekeep part and that little microcosm and the whole aspect of, oh, you have to bring a book, you have to bring knowledge in order to access the knowledge.
It sounds great, doesn't it?
Well, it seemed I just didn't see the sinister side of it. And it also, from a mechanics standpoint, I was like, oh, this is like a perfect way to just have like adventure hooks, you know, to be like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to go find books, you know, to get in. And it's like, I was just looking at it in such like a naive way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really wonderful for you to come in and bring that perspective, because it just added this whole other layer to it that I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't considering at all. Like, so
Yeah,
it was cool.
Everything I just said about like Lovelace's reasons are completely like after the fact, and I think a lot of it is just like me as a player being like, gonna punch up, gonna fight power, gonna see exploitation where it exists and punch it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that's completely valid. Like I do that all the time with my characters and players, or player characters and NPCs. So yeah, you know, like I totally see some of myself and Jameis. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh my god. Yeah, it looks like we do have one question in chat. Let's see.
Why Lovelace and Quidam are so against working with Box of Screws in the future, from Winged Scribe 99.
So this, I'll leave this kind of up to the two of you, how much you want to reveal or not, because some of this could be good, juicy story moments. So
I think, at least for Lovelace, like the thing to understand is Lovelace, quote unquote, got out of working with Box of Screws. Lovelace has done her one last job. And so seeing all of these like tiny little fishing hooks that Box of Screws is just like, hey, like you need a loan? No problem. I noticed that you've been using a lot of guild resources for this. It's just like, god damn it. You never really get out.
Oh, it's so perfect. I actually, on this note, I have to thank Claire for all of the wonderful NPCs that Claire has contributed to these adventures. Claire, there's been a lot of NPCs that Claire essentially gave me like a really tiny, not tiny, but by the way, I'm not saying that in a bad way, just like a perfect like 3-sentence little thing about the character, which gave me plenty to run with. So super appreciative of that.
Yeah, I love making NPCs. And, you know, I had a lot of fun with Box of Screws.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of running off of that, do you...
I would like to answer the Wicked Scribe's question first. This is, I know, rather infuriating, but Quidam has personal reasons that they do not want to work with this specific individual.
You seem to get along so well.
I know, so well. Oh man, Box of Screws runs Quidam up the wall. They think of themselves as a very patient person, generally speaking, and ooh, she gets right underneath that. But yeah, we'll see where that goes.
That's great.
Breezy Breezy says, I def get the vibe that Box of Screws craves control over people, like abusive parents, my house, my rules kind of thing. Yeah, Nathan, I really like how you play Box of Screws. Also, like, you just, like, bring them to life in that kind of, like, quiet power, but unrelenting way.
Thanks!
It's, like, makes it so you don't want to go home for Christmas.
Thanks. I was intimidated to play Box of Screws because she's such like a big part of both of your characters' lives, and that was one of the NPCs that Claire gave me a little like rap sheet for, and I was pretty intimidated to play her. So thank you, I appreciate that. I did want to go off of that though, Claire, for you. Like, this is maybe too big of a question to really answer, but just as best you can. Where do you get the inspiration for the characters that you write, these NPCs? I'm interpreting what you give me.
Oh yeah.
So the audience is just seeing the end result of my interpretations of what you've given me. But there's been a number. Just for the perspective of the audience, I'll just list a few. So it's Box of Screws, the Faffle Stamps, crap, I'm forgetting their names. Basically all the healers crew. So
Yeah.
what's
Melissa
the Goliath?
and
Yeah, Melissa. The Goliath was
Pavu.
Pavu. That's it. That was what I was trying to remember. Anyways, those are, to name a few, those are some of the NPCs. So yeah.
Gosh, how do I create NPCs? They're always within they're always within the context of the setting. I almost feel like I start with the setting sometimes. You mentioned needing people, or you said that you would need to put aside time to make people for the healers crew, and I was like, healers crew folks, and like 3 different ideas popped into my head. One of the main ones was I would love to see like a kind of a wide variety of interpretations of what a healer is. Quidam's over here doing mostly midwifery stuff. Let's get like Pavu's a barber in the kind of traditional sense of the word, meaning he does both hair and dentistry. Yeah. Melissa doesn't interact with patients really. She does, the materials aspect of it.
She's a pharmacist.
She's a pharmacist. Yeah. Yeah, it was that's kind of where the healers crew folks came from, of who is a healer.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's great. It's hearing you say that, I can absolutely see that now. Like, because I mean, there's even others that we only briefly touched on, but I know more about, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. That actually, Claire, do you want to ask your audience question? I don't know how many people are actually with us right now. Oh, there's a decent amount.
Yeah, we've got some people.
Hi, everyone. If anyone who feels comfortable engaging in chat, Claire had a great question for all of you. I would love.
Yeah. Speaking of lots of NPCs, these were the first arcs that introduced a lot of NPCs that the PCs already knew, that Quidam and Lovelace knew already, but that were new to the audience. And I'm wondering, what was that experience like for you all? Did it pique your curiosity? Was it frustrating at any point? Is there anyone you want to get to know better, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, and yeah, feel free to start putting answers in chat. But we'll keep talking because there's definitely a delay, and I don't want to just sit here in silence. Oh!
I mean, I feel like it is an interesting, like, kind of problem in storytelling. Like, how do you reveal information that you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just info dump and be like, okay, like, everybody, like, this is how we know this person. Like, nobody wants to hear that. It doesn't make for great storytelling. Like, but also you can't just, like, assume that people know everything.
Yeah.
Like, and just, like, barrel through it.
I mean,
like,
yeah, I agree.
And
but
I feel like we kind of like came down harder on the second side this season, just being like, oh yeah, box screws, as you know, and like we don't really like spend a lot of time introducing, but like it just takes trust that the audience will like stick with it and like then pick up on like the context clues and like be paying attention. And so yeah, it would be good to hear what that experience was like for folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a pretty modern storytelling technique these days. You see a lot of stories that are told where they just have a character come in and they're doing things and you just like get no context for it, and it's like you start to learn later. So it's like I don't think it's too crazy, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm actually looking at some of the answers here, what people are saying.
So it sounds like Operation is feeling a little overwhelmed by the amount of people, which makes sense.
Yeah. I would
sometimes have a hard time keeping names straight. Would love artwork, even shoddy free avatar makes. That's a great idea, actually.
if either of you want to do that. I said if either of you want to do that, that would be amazing. I'm juggling too many things, but yeah, that is a good idea. With those three. Oh.
I'm wondering if we could, or I suppose you, Nathan, could give like re-describe people physically.
I should. Yes, that's actually something. That's something I've been trying to make note of. Even for the two of you, for Lovelace and Quidam, like maybe less so now, but I think in some cases I should drop little descriptions here or there. I've been trying to do it mainly with Lovelace just because I feel like it's really easy if somebody were to tune in to not realize Lovelace is a centaur, and then which we had happened. I forget who that was. Yep. Somebody was watching and something was happening, and then Quidam's like, I jump on Lovelace's back and we ride away, and somebody's like, what? Like, what is happening? And it was like, oh, centaur, got it. Yes, absolutely. I think quick refresher descriptions of what people look like, I think, is a great idea.
Do we want to like put together like a cast page? Like lots of like webcomics and stuff will be like,
that could be fun.
Cast of characters and just like a little like avatar like picture and then like a couple sentence description with like connections.
That would be fun.
Sounds nice. I would love to do Pit Crews for that.
Yeah, maybe we can put that together. I don't know where we would put it. We don't really have a website right now.
We could put it on the Twitch about page.
Yeah, okay.
I think that would work.
Can that be like a living thing that like as we go we can add more? Oh yeah, because we can just edit it at any point. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah.
Great. Just write that down.
Yeah, write that down. That's a great idea. All of that was your idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. No. Or did somebody else suggest that?
Oh wait, yeah, it was me. Somebody else like mentioned using Pit Crews.
The Pit Crews, like, yes.
I don't know if that's like totally okay with using.
Yeah, that's true.
It might be like weird with Twitch, but yeah. I did want to quickly look. I think I saw some 2 more questions here.
Yeah, Winged Scribe got some at the top.
There we go. Why is Pavu the one who was thought of with the troll? Everything unclear about Box of Screws. Are there other candidates for? Oh, Doula's in the area. Oh, I don't know. That's probably for you, Quidam, Claire. I mean, for the troll one, I'll just quickly answer the troll one. I mean, Pavu is a Goliath, and trolls traditionally speak giant, so, or at least a form of giant. So that was where that came from. That was all, by the way, just to shout out to both of you. That was really cool. A really cool moment of thinking about the world and the people in it, and then using that to solve the problem. That was really, I was like, that I loved that, because I completely forgot about Pavu, and then that just came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh yeah. Like, it's really cool.
I also completely forgot about Pavu, and then Quidam remembered.
Excellent.
Claire, you're so good at like getting in the heads of your characters like that. Like you, or like they inhabit you.
Thank you. That's one thing that I was able to do of this arc for the first time with Quidam, was actually sit in their head and just think, feel, be, interpret through them. Yeah.
Two things here. One, Operation, I appreciate you offering to make a flowchart if we give you a list. Maybe we could do that. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Fun little collab there. And then Winged Scribe had another question that for both of you. Just to boil it down, Winged Scribe asks, I'm also curious as to how Lovelace and Quidam's appearance has changed over the adventure. So I would love to hear from both of you. Maybe Olive, do you have any ideas of how Lovelace's appearance has changed, if at all?
So obviously was in travel clothes while traveling. and probably like change into more like urban wear. I think Lovelace is very aware as a centaur, like how she appears and like how she blends in or doesn't blend in. And so like I think it's probably not like super dramatic, but like it is something that she pays attention to in her fashion. I feel like reconnecting with the centaurs, like having that like tiny little bit there at the end should be represented visually somehow, like reincorporating like a particular like braid style or like some kind of like barrette maybe.
Well,
I haven't decided on that yet.
yeah, I think on that note though, like you've only connected with the one person who did say they would spread the
Not
word
something super dramatic,
but like I'm one, yeah, because it feels like a first step,
yeah.
of Lovelace starting to reconnect. I did want to ask though, when you said travel clothes and urban clothes, like what do the urban clothes look like? Do you have an idea of what that looks like, or is that
do not.
You do not? Okay. But something I did remember, like detail wise, is that if I remember correctly, wasn't there a moment when, because everything was getting so crazy with the slithering tracker, that Lovelace just didn't braid her hair in the morning?
Oh right, that is true.
So I'm wondering, like, I wonder if by the time you got to like that, when you infiltrated the slaughterhouse and then ran back to Box of Screws, I wonder if at that moment, what do you think Lovelace, like in terms of the braids, like what was Lovelace at that point?
I think so that was the morning where we did wake up and we took a little bit slower because we didn't know Otto was dead yet. Thanks, Nathan. So I think Lovelace did braid her hair that morning.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, just was in a slaughterhouse. Probably still wearing the like slaughterhouse uniform.
Yeah.
That was like ill-fitting because like we didn't have time to doff it.
Yeah.
Because it takes a minute to don or doff armor, which was relevant.
All those bracelets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Claire, what do you think for Quidam?
Yeah. I think Quidam has a style that works for them and does a little bit of variation within that, but not terribly much. So loose leggings, wool socks, like undershirt, tunic, sweater, shawl is I think they're like go-to. They'll wear a dress if they're feeling fancy. But yeah, they don't like, is their hair grown out? Not really. It's only been a couple of 10 days. I think Quidam's a decently clean person. They bathe regularly.
They just get covered in blood quite frequently.
They just get covered in blood. I mean, but on the one hand, they're kind of used to that. Usually, it's a less violent application of blood. I think the one thing that has changed for me with Quidam's appearance is going from building an aesthetic for a character that I am playing to having reasons for all of that. The bracelets were just cool originally. And I at some point was like, okay, but why so many bracelets and why all the time? And out of that has kind of come, Quidam has some sensory issues. Weight is very comforting for them. Sensation, like on their skin, is intense, which is why they wear so many layers. They genuinely just pad themselves against the outside world to a certain extent.
Oh, jeez.
So that's been a change, which hasn't ever been relevant, so I haven't talked about it in character, but like that has happened for me.
That's awesome. Let's see, I had a question relating to back to the adventure. This is going back to like pretty early on, but this is, I think, ties into some of the stuff we've been talking about, which is, so this goes for both of you. Like for Quidam, what was going through Quidam's head when that were-rat that showed up as you were all traveling back to Baldur's Gate?
I forgot about that.
And then the were-rat backed down after seeing Lovelace and seemed very afraid. So what was going through Quidam's head when that happened? Did Quidam view Lovelace differently after that? And then basically same thing for Lovelace. Like, what was Lovelace's experience for that? So maybe start with Quidam / Claire.
Yeah. There was a certain amount of the way that Quidam views Lovelace as an individual did not change. What changed was their understanding of how the world viewed Lovelace and how the world might view them, Quidam, being in association with Lovelace. They were aware suddenly that Lovelace was more recognizable as Box of Screws specifically, which meant that association with her might mean that Quidam is at risk of being associated with Box of Screws in particular.
Interesting. What about for you, Olive?
I think Lovelace's experience coming out of like that Null fight was like very much like, is this a threat? I'm still high on adrenaline. Okay, the situation is developing. Like, God, like I just remember like trying to scare them off, and then when they started backing off, being like, no, wait, who are you? Come back. And like failing first at scaring them off, and then failing at getting them to come back afterwards. Like, it was just, the situation was completely out of Lovelace's control.
Yeah.
It's like, God, so much of this arc was like talking and social dynamics, and like, I think like the moment that I am actually gonna remember is sneaking into the butcher shop, messing up, sneaking past that one guard, having them pull a knife on Lovelace, and Lovelace's reaction was like, "Oh, thank God!"
Right.
like it's like, oh, we're finally in a like domain that I understand. We understand each other. Everything's very clear. This is so much better.
Oh, that's so good.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so with the were-rat, it's just like more of that being out of control. This is not my domain of expertise, but I keep finding myself in it.
It's funny how often Lovelace has ended up in those positions, but I will say that, and again, like, kudos to you for like using the world and the resources that you had at your disposal. But when you got locked up by the Flaming Fist with the whole troll encounter, and then you on your character sheet were like, wait, and you're like your background and everything, and you like tied it all in, and you were like, I have guild contacts, which yeah, you do, like we've seen it, and like being able to use that network, and then also having the like you didn't just use it on such a base level of just get me out of here. It was get me in touch with Divian, Guthmere, and then you like took that even further and were like, I'm going to get resources. Yeah, I'm gonna like get stuff out of this, and that was amazing. Yeah. That basically allowed both of you to get the Dust of Dryness without having to like go into debt with Box of Screws, like which in the end the Dust of Dryness, you know, turned this scary boss fight into like 2 rounds of just killing it in 2 rounds, which is really awesome.
It made it save. Darn shame.
So anyways, I just want to say, like, that was a moment where it went counter to kind of what Lovelace had been dealing with for so long. It was like this moment of taking control and like getting back in control in a complex social situation. So
as a player, I really enjoy that because I find myself so often like going over my character sheet, being like, is there anything that can help me? No. Is there anything that can help me? No. I don't have any pluses to like intimidation. I don't have any like magic item that just showed up in my backpack that would solve this.
Yeah.
But this time it did. I had exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying.
It was awesome. It was very well earned too. It was great. Yeah. Let's see. Looks like there's another question.
Question for Nathan. Let's do that.
Okay.
Was the chainmail in the butcher's shop workers intentionally ambiguous? Were you aware that many butchers wear chainmail even in modern times? This is from Winged Scribe.
I did not know that butchers wear chainmail. That actually kind of makes sense. But no, the chainmail was... I guess I can kind of reveal some of this now, but because just the way that we kind of wrapped up the story. Basically, all the people that were working in the butcher shop, Pask was slowly replacing the original employees with his own people. And those people weren't really butchers by trade. And so those folks that were wearing chainmail, like their primary function was not really to do the work they were doing. They were... Yeah, if it had gone on longer, like if you had taken longer with the investigation and more days had gone on and stuff, I probably would have started revealing details about like how the quality of the meats at Ham Hocks has really started to go down, and like there's been complaints, and you know, like the meat is not butchered well and whatever. Yeah, the guy wearing chainmail, he was wearing chainmail because he was essentially like not a butcher. He was a cultist, I guess, to put it that way. So, yeah, he was working for Pask to do other things. Yeah. So yeah, that's what happened there. I wish I was smart enough, or not smart enough, but I wish I had done the research to know that butchers wore chainmail, because that's really great.
You do a lot of research, though, right?
I did. I read up a lot on butcher shops and slaughterhouses. Oh God, I don't know. Slaughterhouses are awful. I was looking at like old medieval tapestries of trying to figure out how slaughterhouses worked before kind of like industrialization and stuff, and I was looking up like how the fuck did they slaughter animals? Like what did they do? And which is I was just curious. And yeah, in some cases it was just it seems like it was just a, you know, like a slit and letting the blood drain. But I saw these images where, I won't get too graphic about this, but they basically like restrained the animal, and they had a big mallet, like a big sledgehammer thing. I think they maybe used like an iron, almost like nail that they would boink, like but I think in some cases it was literally like that wasn't even present. I think it was literally just hammer to the head. Yeah, no more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I was reading about all this stuff, I was just like, oh God. And the slaughterhouses that I depicted in our adventure were verging on Industrial Revolution style slaughterhouses, which I'm okay with, because as far as I can tell, like, you know, 5e Faerun is this like Renaissance era, probably even a little further along.
Yeah.
And then because there's magic, like things get weird with like there's some
technology levels
and like some modern aspects show up, you know. So so I was okay with it being closer to industrialized. So but yeah, like, you know, I was looking up all the different rooms. Like there was the awful room, and if you had explored those slaughterhouses even more, there were like other rooms available that you could have found stuff in, and so yeah. Yeah.
I'm feeling some conflict between Quidam's interest in like figuring the thing out and focusing on the task at hand, and Claire's desire to explore and ask questions and you know, generally just learn stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Uh that's awesome.
I actually have
Yeah.
a question about that for you, Claire. You've mentioned a couple times, I think, on stream, being like, "I want to murder, but Quidam doesn't want to murder." Like,
Yep.
how are you handling that? I guess like internal conflict between like your out of character desires and in character desires.
hmm Um, ultimately, it is most important to me to tell an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for that to happen in a way that feels honest, almost, I have to stick to my character.
Mm-hmm.
That I am so totally uninterested in inconsistencies that might arise if I compromise on my characterization and let Claire's secondary desires come through. And it is my secondary desires if I want to, murder. D&D is set up for combat to be fun. It's fun. Quidam is becoming very slowly more comfortable with violence. But it's more important to me and more interesting to me to play Quidam as Quidam and let any change that may happen on its own timeline as it makes sense, rather than for Quidam sometimes to just vanish
Mm-hmm.
and Claire to be moving a figurine around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll quickly answer Wheezy's Breezy's question here about learning about butcher shops and processes. Has it affected my meat consumption? I don't think it has, unfortunately. But I know. I mean, I generally try to do my best for sourcing my meat as responsibly as I can, and I also try to not eat as much as I try to cut back. But yeah. Yeah, I won't go too far into it on this stream, but it was an interesting question nonetheless. And also, the stuff I was reading about was definitely older practices. I didn't read about modern practices, so yeah. But I'm actually kind of curious now. So morbidly, I mean, it would also be a responsible thing to know
Yeah.
how that works.
I read a thing recently talking about dirty work.
Yeah.
Specifically, like it talked a lot about like butcher shops, and drone operators actually in Afghanistan, and
Oh
it's
god,
like,
yeah.
or like the moderators on like social media networks, the people who like suffer like this like work that is traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
and tears at you, so the rest of society like doesn't have to. It's like kind of pushed out of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a reason that all these butcher shops are in the outer city.
Yeah, I mean, it's reading about it. There was a lot of stuff about the psychological toll butcher shops, or not butcher shops, slaughterhouses. Like, we should clarify, the different. Like, there is definitely a difference between butcher shop and slaughterhouse. I did a thing where I kind of smashed them together, but slaughterhouse is specifically a lot of psychological trauma. Yeah. Yeah, not to go on too much of a tangent, but something that I actually genuinely am curious about participating in sometime, because I do eat meat, is actually being more involved, like at least once being involved with that process of what it takes to get meat. Like, I have people in my life that, are on farms and ranches and stuff, so like I could, if I made the effort, I could probably go and participate in that process. And it's something at some point in my life I actually wanted to participate in, because I just feel like I'm doing this Like I am eating meat, and it's like it's a reality of it, right? So I would
Can I
like to,
share my experiences with that?
if you want, yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up on a farm. We had cows, meat cows, but I didn't actually see any of them get killed until like college, um, and learning about it while studying the brain and like how the brain controls movement. I think like the thing that struck me was that the body doesn't know when the brain has died.
Yeah.
And just like all of these like different muscle groups twitching like independently, and like it's just like out of coordination. And just like seeing that, I guess, just like made it more real. Like meat is a body, or was. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that stuck with me, I think, the most. Like seeing the disconnect happen.
Yeah.
So when you started talking about freaking troll meat twitching in the butcher shop, that was actually my first thought. I'm just like, oh yeah, that happens. It must just be like really fresh. Like if you pour salt on like really fresh beef, it will twitch.
Yeah. I've experienced that before. I've had that fresh of meat. I've seen that. Yes, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, no, this was heavily cured meat that had been cured for a very long time that was suddenly doing that. Yes, thank you for the lighter question.
Yeah, okay,
but that was actually I thought that was a really interesting topic. Thank you for bearing with us.
Yes.
Hopefully that wasn't too intense, but I thought that was really interesting. We know Lovelace's favorite place in the city is the Sacred Tree. Where is Quidam's favorite place in the city?
Quidam's favorite place in the world is the city. I don't know that there is a singular spot necessarily for them. Quidam is in love with Baldur's Gate, and the collectives of communities and people in the city. They are fond of their home. They have been there for about 30 years at this point, and actually have been there longer than they were with their parents. But I don't think they have a specific favorite spot. It might be moving through the streets during the daytime.
What?
If you were on a date with Irony, where would you go? I panicked and I chose the tree.
You mean Valor, right?
Valor. There we go.
Other two.
Irony's a little young.
I mean, yeah, Irony
all
too.
Of these like paragon names.
I know.
Yes.
I did have one clarifying question though about that. Is you said walking through the streets of the city, what district or part, like, do you mean including outer, lower, and upper, or are you specifically talking about the outer, specifically talking about the lower?
Probably outer and lower. Quidam just doesn't get to the upper city terribly often. It's expensive, and then once you're there, it's expensive. But they do love the city as a whole.
What I am curious, because I saw Olive being like this, and not to go too much on a big long tangent about it, but like, are there specific things about the city that Quidam loves? Like, that we've seen a lot of stuff in the city that has not been great, in our story. I think we have seen some lovely things, but I'd say that probably the majority of it has not been the best. So I'm curious, what are the aspects of the city that Quidam sees and loves?
Quidam loves the tenacity of the people here. That life is hard, and sometimes it's hard because they make it hard for themselves. But the grit and tenacity of continuing to live, of continuing to find moments of joy and pleasure and experience is something that Quidam deeply admires about this place. They love bumping up against people who they do not know regularly and being forced to contend with people who have different ideas and experiences and desires and beliefs than them. They love that you can do anything, can find anything if you are willing to do anything in this city. They don't really have a sense of this is gonna I'm gonna say a statement and I'm gonna see if I believe it.
Okay.
They don't have a strong sense of law.
Okay.
They are aware of what is legal and what is illegal. But simply because something is legal does not make it good or right or righteous. And similarly, just because something is illegal does not make it bad or evil or unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a deep appreciation for systems and the smoothness with which things can operate with systems, and also are aware that there is no singular system that works well for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the reasons why they're such a fan of the cruise.
Cool.
Yeah, that was long-winded.
No,
but,
no, it was great. That was great. I did want to quickly address operations question of will we be seeing more of our troll friend, Zulyafi? I don't know. That's up to Lovelace and Quidam, really, because Zulyafi is out in the world somewhere. Who knows if Zulyafi will ever show up again? But hopefully,
go north.
If we ever roll a troll on a random encounter,
on a random encounter. Oh, look! It happens to be Zulyafi.
I mean, it's gotta be right. Like,
possibly, yeah. I would say most likely yes. But if you were, I don't know, down in Chult for some reason, I'd be like, why is Zulyafi all the way down there?
That would require a boat ride.
Yeah. But yeah, I really, yeah, I had that plot line was a lot of fun. I know it was really fucked up, but
Nathan,
I
loved it.
Well, what was that, Olive?
I want to go to the Hissing Stones sometime. I was hoping to get over there during this one. We did some world building.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed really cool. It's like a like sauna house over on the like far west.
South? Yes, west, on the far west side. It's near the sea tower of Baldurin, which is like the Flaming Fist's giant ass fortress that's in the middle of the harbor. So, yeah. Well, maybe we will go there someday in the future. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Do either of you have any questions you want to ask? I have a few more that I can rattle off here, but
Olive, how likely is Lovelace to pursue exploring her ghostly powers?
What do you mean by exploring?
What I mean is, how avoidant is Lovelace?
I don't know. Like, I feel like Lovelace is frustrated. Like, these ghosts show up, and they don't explain why. She's getting weird dreams. So, like, if there was a clear path forward, yeah, sure. But if it's just, like, hanging out and more things not making sense and not working right, like, I think she'd have about, like, maybe 45 seconds worth of patience for, like, hanging out with the medium or something. If, like, Quidam dragged her into some, like, soothsayer's booth. But, like, it's like, this ain't working. I'm gonna peace. It's gonna make sense at some point, or it won't. But I'm just gonna keep moving through the world my way.
So she's choosing to ignore the leads that Torimesh
Yeah,
gave her.
Tori-
that's a good question. She's been so busy with the, like, slithering tracker.
Yes.
What's that looking like? I haven't really thought of it. We haven't talked about, like, what the downtime and next steps look like. I don't know. It's just, like, the tyranny of the urgent, right?
Mhm.
Like-
Oh yeah. I mean that's Dungeons and Dragons. That's why
Yeah.
you plan downtime.
Which
Yeah.
is, which, not to jump too far ahead, but we are planning to do a downtime stream.
I'm gonna buy some short swords.
Actually, I did kind of have a question going off of that for Lovelace, which was whenever Quidam sees the spirits, Lovelace denies that they exist. Why? What's going on
Deeply
there?
avoidant person.
Yeah, like,
What's
and maybe
the alternative? What's the alternative, Nathan?
talk
Like, yeah.
about it. I
And
don't
Talk
then
know.
about
what?
your feelings.
And then what?
Address
Talk
your
about it? That
issues.
sounds uncomfortable. I don't like
Heal.
that.
Become a
Talking
better person.
So,
sounds fake.
so I
Yeah, Quidam doesn't know what's up. Lovelace doesn't know what's up. What's the conversation going to consist of? Might as well not have the conversation. I already know how it's going to end.
Quidam has ways of finding things out now.
So maybe this is something for in-world, in-game.
Maybe.
So
One
we'll
of Quidam's faults
yeah.
is doing people's work for them.
So we'll leave it on that because this seems like something I think will be more fun to explore in game. But where was the oh yeah. This was for Quidam. I wanted to ask. We found out that Quidam is okay with lying. I think it was surprising for everybody, including you,
Yep.
if I remember. I'm just curious, like, where did that come from? / do you have an idea for Quidam, and is Quidam okay? I mean, it seems like Quidam's okay with it, but I just want to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, this was one of those times where I was in Quidam and there was no filter between Quidam and my mouth. Quidam is fine with lying that doesn't hurt people, at least from their perspective. And they think well enough of themselves to think that they have a pretty good handle on whether things hurt people or not. From their perspective, Sorcerer's Sundries is wealthy enough as an institution, and therefore this individual was wealthy enough that they felt perfectly comfortable haggling a lot. And if that involved lying, well, the lies weren't hurting anyone.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was just so funny in that moment. I just felt like everybody went, "Oh, okay." I guess this
Yep.
is... That's great. Question from. Oh yeah, go.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
Olive.
just want
Yes.
to say one thing. Like,
Yes.
I feel like that was just like such classic D&D. This situation is spiraling out of control. Here, have some holy water. Oh God.
Well, because then you said that's because you said, "Oh, it's an unlimited container of holy water."
No, that was right.
Well, I don't think you'll mind then if I and then just poured the whole thing out onto the ground.
I cannot excuse Quidam. I do not know exactly what I think they just got caught up in the moment and were like, this is believable, right?
Oh my god. That was good. Good times. Wheezy's Breezy's asks, question, in the future, would y'all ever have a guest character on for an episode? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. We would have to see how things go. At the moment, we're trying to keep this like pretty small and as simple as possible, which is it's a lot. So maybe in the future, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. It could be fun. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, also not opposed. We haven't discussed it at all.
Yeah, hasn't come up. We're still pretty.
What would it look like if we did? Like,
I mean, it would be something. I mean, the only frame of reference I have is like other people's streams that I've watched, and it would just be. This character would have some sort of introduction. You know, they would show up. They would have kind of their own motives, but they would be somehow they would be linked to whatever it is you two are doing. So there would be some, I guess, contrivances happening. I mean, it's a story. Of course, there's going to be some things happening on the side of like working with that person to make sure that they can tie into whatever's happening. However, I do like it when characters have their own motives that maybe even contrast with what you two are doing. So it may be something like that. That's how I'd kind of envision it. I know it's like really high level, but does that answer your question, Olive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how we would decide when we would do that. That's, I think, a bigger discussion. Because right now we're really small. We're just trying to focus on ourselves, trying to focus on this little thing we got going. Don't want to overcomplicate it right now.
Let's just like call it like that's a tool in our back pocket, and if we come up to a story situation where it would make sense, we can talk about it then.
Yeah. Something we are I think this is fine to talk about. Something we are like talking about pretty actively though is perhaps incorporating in like a sidekick from Tasha's ruling of like having sidekicks. We've had a few discussions offline. I know all of you've spoken on it before.
Can I give the background?
For
I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think it's such a cool like design realization for me on how like mechanics impact story. So playing D&D with two characters is really hard. You may have noticed almost all of our encounters are life or death. Mostly Quidam dying and then Lovelace killing everybody else. Sometimes multiple times. And I noticed that I feel like the way that we're playing is just like very like honest to the die, and like Claire is like very good at saying like Quidam's not super comfortable with violence and so isn't gonna like jump into like use and inflict wounds on a person who's like trying to mug them like on the first round. Nathan's just like, they're gnolls come in this many packs of people, your two characters, they're probably gonna kill you, let's see what happens. And like kind of the result of it is like a lot of mechanical pressure has been put on Lovelace to be a tank, be the striker, and kind of be the controller and like pull Quidam like out of harm's way a lot. And like what has been happening is like, I guess like me as a player, like that means that all of my attention is focusing on like the tactical situation. And like the example that I gave is in one of our other campaigns that we played before this. I played like this wizard, and like I would do things like, oh, I was shot in the back, I'm gonna fall prone, just like as a reaction to that, and just like screw around in combat and not try to like extract every possible tactical advantage. Which was like a lot of fun, but I cannot do that in this game. Like, I mean, unless because I fear death. Y'all don't fear death, but I fear death.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you were to fall prone in a to actively choose to fall prone for story reasons or role-playing reasons, like it could be really deadly. I would, if you did that, I would try my best. Oh, I think I'm peaking. Sorry, everybody. I just saw my levels going like crazy. My levels were like bing, 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 like on my audio. Sorry, my audio levels were like in the red. So sorry. Anyways, my point is, if you did do that, yes, it would probably be a really bad idea. It'd be really deadly. However, I would try to find some way to give you something. I don't know. I would maybe just throw in the inspiration mechanic. You know, I would like give you advantage or something, like because that's a bold thing to do. I don't want to punish you for it if you're actively choosing to be like, no, I'm going to do this thing. But even that being said, even if I gave you inspiration or I gave you advantage or whatever, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're two players, and you're absolutely right about it. A lot of pressure is being put on you, and I'm sure it's, yeah.
So like, I just think it's like really interesting because like it's like just such a kind of like emergent property of like all of our play styles and like the situation that we chose for ourselves of like having a 2-player party. Like I guess it wasn't something that I was anticipating, and it's just like really cool to like see what all these ingredients create. And I've been having a blast. I love running around and like using my brain at 100%. Be like, okay, like I'm in jail now. What do I do? Okay, like Quidam's down. I'm locked in a room with a blood monster. How are we gonna get out of this one? Okay, like let's do some door shenanigans. Like holding the door closed. Okay, they come in.
Hello. I don't. Wait, this is a new person.
Hey, we have a new human.
Yeah,
I assume you're human.
Yeah, well, hopefully they're human. Hello.
I mean, Eon is typically like an Eevee evolution suffix.
Is it Valexian?
Yeah.
Valiexon?
Valiexon? Sorry, we're butchering your username. But yes,
Welcome.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So like we've been talking about like kind of like different knobs that we can have like turn.
Yeah.
To like lessen that. And like there are things like, I mean, the obvious ones are just like level down the monsters, but like that's like a little bit less fun.
Yeah.
Like, but like other knobs are things like a thing that Nathan, you did with the Nolan counters, like you staggered introduction of enemies.
I think that was your suggestion.
Yeah.
Which
it
again,
was.
thank you so much for that.
But I saw you do that again in the butcher shop fight.
I did, yes. Which I thought helped make it again more engaging. Like the fact that you gave me that suggestion a while back, I'm like so thankful for.
It's such a good tool.
Yeah.
It's such a good tool for modulating difficulty in combat encounters.
And it's really quick and easy to implement. To just be like, okay, hold on, let me like stagger this out. Yeah.
Like if things are going too easy, you just like have them show up a little bit sooner. If it's too hard, you're just like, oh, I guess they haven't shown up yet. Like that's super possible.
I just so you're aware though, like to not I don't know, but anyways, just so you're aware, with that fight though, the Corey showing up, I mean he was following you the whole time, so that wasn't like just out of nowhere, like you know, I didn't just go, oh, I need a big bad now. That was something I was, for those of you that watched our adventure, I'm sure hopefully some of you noticed I was like making these little rolls constantly that I think were hidden from both of you. I'm pretty certain they were. Sometimes roll 20, I'm like,
this is the invisible stalker guy, right? Who like,
yeah, so he basically,
so annoying.
The long hair.
He had a couple of oh yeah, I'm sorry, we're not in campaign right now, but anyways, ooh, Interesting. Yeah, that might. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So DM controlled NPC was another one of the knobs we were talking about
Yes.
using
Yeah.
sidekick mechanics from Tasha's. Like when
Yeah.
we
And
were
actually-
in the mansion, we had irony, and that just made everything a little bit smoother.
And
like,
you-
had
Yep.
Valor on the road back.
You said
Yeah.
too. I think it was you all have said that when Valor was with us, you said it felt, or maybe it was you, Claire. One of you said it felt.
Yeah, it was me.
It was you. You said it felt the most like a traditional D&D party, like a D&D adventure, because you had that 3-person group with like a broader spread of skills. So yeah.
And something that actually I really appreciated, which I recognize is a very Claire thing to appreciate, but I was able to talk to Lovelace about Valor and Valor about Lovelace,
Yeah, that's right.
which meant that Quidam could process some stuff before directing it or directly addressing it with the person they were thinking and feeling about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know that for both of you, Valor was like a huge favorite. I would love to bring Valor back, but as we were saying earlier about staying true to the dice and the world, that's something that is really important to me. And as of now, I don't know if Valor will return, because Valor did have their own motives and stuff in the world. That being said, Valor is a person that exists in the world that could be found, could go, so these are all just big what ifs, but yeah. Anyways, Valexian, the DM controlled NPC, we were actually just talking about potentially implementing, we're gonna do it, but implementing the sidekick mechanics from Tasha's is probably what we'll do. Maybe it'll be a variation on that, but likely we'll go with that because it's easier on me to just, hey, it's there, here's the rules for it. I did want to, I know we're not doing too bad on time. God, so many things flying through my head. There was like something I wanted to address, but do either of you have questions you want to ask or talk, anything you want to address before I keep
I
rambling?
also wanted to talk about the patron mechanic from Tasha's.
Oh yeah, because go ahead.
I mean, that's just like another mechanic that we talked about. Like, so the patron mechanic is just like a way of kind of mechanizing like the quest giver support role that Boxes of Screws has kind of already been doing. And it like just gives that like a little bit like more mechanical staying power.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just laughing because I'm like, hey, if you all really start having Box of Screws be a patron, like, that has some implications.
Oh yeah, and I'm super into having
Okay.
Oh,
implications.
yeah.
Okay.
I love the idea of implications with Box of Screws.
Yeah.
Quidam does not.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. But like, I mean, that like interaction is so fun.
Good.
Like,
Good.
I don't
good,
want to
good.
leave that behind.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No, this is good. Okay, great.
And we are level 4 currently.
Oh,
We're level 4 now.
well,
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
you will be level 5 soon. So
That's often what happens
Second attack.
when one is done being level 4.
yeah. I feel like there was one other thing that I wanted to ask. Oh, it was for Quidam, to talk about a story beat. And then this, I think, is the end of my questions. So either after this, we'll wrap things up, or if anybody in chat has further questions you want to ask, or if either of you have further questions you want to ask. But my last question, which is for Quidam, because it was a powerful moment. Quidam started crying at the end of the Slithering Tracker arc when basically both of you, to oversimplify it, you defeated Pask in court. But we saw those tears well up when you walked out into the upper city and were surrounded by all of the citizens that you had gathered, all of your community. Maybe this is an obvious thing, but I just want to hear your take on it. Like, what sparked those tears, or rather, why did those tears well up? What was going through your head, through their head?
Yeah. This is very closely related to what I was talking about earlier with Quidam being in love with the city. it was the point at which Quidam has felt most loved and most taken care of this entire campaign. That their communities and it is the collectiveness of the communities, not just the assemblage of individuals, came and saved might be a strong term, but that's kind of what they were thinking and feeling in the moment, came and saved them because the community judged them worth putting themselves at risk for.
Do you think that was the first time that Quidam saw so many community members in one place showing support like that?
Yeah, I think so. Because we pulled people from everywhere.
Well, Lovelace, you pulled people from like the lower city, from basically guild contacts, whereas, you know, Quidam was doing all the crew stuff. So yeah, it was like a bigger mix.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved that moment. Again, I appreciated it, like, for both of you as players to engage with the world on that level. And full disclosure about that final episode about that story arc, you know, some of that stuff, I just didn't really have, like, I mean, and, you know, I obviously don't have everything like written down to a T, but like some of the stuff I have a bit more prepared in the sense of I kind of have a description for a location, right? Like know the like kind of what goes on in that location or whatever, right? And with this one, due to life, I just didn't get to prep much. So like there was so much of that I was getting surprised by both of you as it was going. I was like, I don't know where this is gonna, what's gonna happen. And you both of you would just like pull these things out, and I would be like, okay, that makes total sense. I'm gonna run with it. Da da da. And like, so it was really, it was scary on my part.
Sure.
But it was also really fun and rewarding for both of you to like take the reins in a lot of ways and help with that. It was cool. So I'm gonna try to do that more when it makes sense. But yeah. Yeah, that was my last question. I believe.
I want to talk more about the finale real quick.
Go for it.
I love having different mechanics for finales that like sum things up. I feel like it's a really efficient way in mechanics to like pull a lot of threads together. So like, I guess like games like Mass Effect 3 get like a lot of flack for doing things like saying, "Oh, okay."
Wait, real quick. Sorry, I hate to say this. I have not played through that series.
Well,
I
okay.
am playing through it right now. I'm playing through it right now, so that's why I'm like, wait, this game that's actually old now. Like, don't spoil it. But anyways, if you can talk around spoilers, please.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a mechanical spoiler.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like it takes. Originally, like got a lot of like pushback because it takes all these decisions that you make that seem really monumental, and like puts them to numbers and kind of is like, is your number high enough or low enough? And like, which like you kind of have to do with like a game like Mass Effect where you have so many different choices and like you don't know the direction that things are gonna go. But also it lets you escalate scale really well.
Yeah. I'm glad you like that, and it was, you know, it was a suggestion that you gave, so I was trying to work with that suggestion you gave about how to scale it, and I liked it too. I thought it worked well as a way to wrap up the story, also as a way to, you know, for future stuff, like, you know, it was some of those mechanics were taken from Xanathar's for downtime stuff, and like there's a reason it's there. It does such a good job of that scale of like scaling things up, of allowing time to pass, allowing these kind of more complex things to happen that you can abstract them to not get lost in the weeds. Because I think we all know it's like like as a player, you have an idea of like, I want this outcome, but obviously the steps to get there are very complicated.
Yeah.
So
Also, the fact, God, I just love this goddamn game sometimes. The fact that it came down to literally a 50-50, it was like 55% chance D20 roll. Like, after all of that, it just came down to like, well, it's a coin toss.
yeah, and I in retrospect, so this is some of the stuff where I think back on it in retrospect, like oh, I wish I had described things maybe a little differently or a little better, or I had slowed down or whatever. But in retrospect, I think it actually it was one of those things where the mechanics and the dice supported the narrative pretty well because you took that lower risk, you had this evidence that was pretty flimsy when you're in a corrupt, especially in a really corrupt court.
We had nothing.
Yeah, and it totally supported that, and like basically, you know, and I was prepared. This would have been really, you know, rough, but I was prepared to have it be that Pask basically had everybody paid off in there, and there was no way you were gonna be able to convince anybody to put him away. But basically with the community part that you did, right? Like getting the story out there, getting all these people talking about it, getting all these people to show up in support of it. It just made sense in my head that it got to to that higher level, and that someone like Older Ravengard would show up for this, because you don't really know anything about Older Ravengard at the moment.
Not a thing.
You would vaguely know, this isn't really a postmortem thing, but you would vaguely know that he is a little more favorable amongst the people, you know, whatever. But yeah, in my head it was like, oh, this works out. This is a great moment to like have that work and allow for Quidam to have that moment of actually casting Zone of Truth and getting Pask cornered. And
It's becoming Quidam's signature spell.
I hate it so much. It's my least favorite spell.
and yeah, and I think I even said in the moment, it was a little bit cheesy, like with him, you know, being like, rah, but I thought it was fun. I think both of you had fun with it, and and really I think the important part is that the end result of it, the part that really like stuck, was that final moment of walking out into the community with both of you and like being in that and having that moment.
That's what I keep going back to.
Yeah.
Is seeing the hundreds of people spread out before us.
Yeah.
God, I Lovelace, I think, couldn't appreciate it because she was caught up in Elder Ravengard, like basically taking credit almost, like in a really subtle way. It's just like the only reason he was put away was because it was to maintain the status quo. And like that was the path of least resistance for the players in power.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we don't know anything about Ravengard.
Okay.
But yes, Pask is taking the, you know, generational bad apple fall. And I don't think that there is going to be any movement from the upper classes to change anything, because why bother? I'm wondering what, if anything, we're going to see from particularly the outer city. Whether this will be kind of an incentive to foment a little bit more rebellion, which will then get violently put down, which will then increase dissatisfaction, which will be violently put down, which will escalate things even more.
Yeah, we started a war.
Maybe. Or whether it will be, whether the upper classes will recognize that that could happen in this case, and so actually make a few surface level changes in an effort to more fully appease the outer city. And if that won't like keep things what's the word I want? Not peaceful.
Status quo-y.
Status quo-y for another generation.
That is
I think the time is right for some kind of like populist firebrand to like rise up and be like, oh, we took down one of the patriarchs, we can take them all down. And
Are you
start a rebellion.
volunteering?
No, not Lovelace. But I guess like that's, I think, like, I mean, that action that happened would need to be organized to make any kind of like lasting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like Lovelace doesn't have those skills. I don't think Quidam is thinking on that wide a scale yet, which might make Quidam the perfect candidate. To be like, oh,
well,
look at all these people I personally know. But I think it's Box of Screws. No, Box of Screws is unpopulist. Box of Screws wouldn't like be given speeches.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, you have a lot to discuss. Yeah. So as we're wrapping this up tonight, thank you everybody for watching tonight, tuning in. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was nice.
Yes, it's very nice. We're having a lot of fun with this, and we love seeing you all tune in and watch. And yeah, and for those of you that watch after the fact, we also love it with seeing those. Yeah, thank you. Just thank you. But couple quick things. So for our next session, we're not going to quite jump into the next adventure next session. We're going to do a downtime episode. So it's going to be Quidam and Lovelace are going to have about a month of time to just do whatever it is they want to do. So we're going to probably be using some downtime rulings if they want to do something that requires rolls. But in some cases, there may be no rolls at all. It may literally just be like little snippets of scenes and conversations. So, but yeah, I just want to let everybody know that so that you kind of know what to expect for next episode. And then we're going to kick off our next arc. Yeah, history of the Roman Republic. And yeah, and then the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on. We haven't done this before, and I feel really awkward doing it, but I do want to just say to all of you for that are watching, we're really close to 50 followers on Twitch, and it'd be really exciting to get to 50 followers. So if you do, again, don't only if you think somebody would enjoy listening to us or watching us. We would love it if you gave a recommendation or told people about us. But
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. But yeah, other than that, I think we're gonna wrap this up. Any last words from Oliver Claire?
Copacetic.
It's a good one.
Okay, great. I think that is gonna do it then. Thank you for joining us on our Postmortem stream, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Folks.
Bye.